Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. I am here today with Danny,
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
and Colleen is teaching today. So, Danny and I will be leading the charge. She's had a busy month. I was just thinking about that with the distance Reiki share, too. Colleen has had a busy month with everything. So, I think between classes and graduations and all of those kinds of things, it's June is always really busy. So today we are here with our live Q&A. And this is our monthly episode of the podcast where we just hold space and give space for asking Reiki questions. This month, in our theme in the Distance Reiki Share and on social media, we have been talking a lot about tools, aspects of being a new Reiki practitioner. I know that we have a lot of people in our community. We have such a wide variety of experience in our Reiki community, from people who have been master teachers for so many years, lots of years. And then we have people that have just come out of either their first Reiki session or their first Reiki class and had a lot of questions about different aspects of being a new Reiki practitioner. We also have some people that have just had a Reiki session or are just Reiki curious. So we try to cover in all of our topics a wide variety of different themes for everybody that is in our community. So that's been a part of what we have been doing this month, and because of that, especially on social media, we've had quite a few people direct message us about different aspects of being a new Reiki practitioner. And so we that didn't change for today. So we'll be answering some of those questions also from people that are new Reiki practitioners. A few announcements. The first thing is that we have only a couple of spots left in our in-person Animal Reiki 1 and 2 coming up in July. So if you were looking to sign up for that, then I would encourage you to do so because we are going to close the class pretty soon. We do have space in our in-person Animal Reiki Masterclass at the end of July. That again, both of those classes are here in Oregon, and we are doing them in the middle of the woods in Mount Hood, Oregon, outside of Portland. And so that is going to be amazing. If you are Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and you're already a human Reiki master, there's no time period in between when you can take that class. So you can go ahead and sign up for that if you have taken Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and you are already a human Reiki master, even if that was a month ago or something like that. There's not that 6-month waiting period for human Reiki and Animal Reiki master. Also, Colleen only teaches Karuna Reiki a couple of times a year, and she has a Karuna Reiki class coming up in August. So we always like to announce that one because is that the last one for the year, Danny? Yeah. So she's only teaching one more this year. That's in August. So just a heads up on that. That class is online. Also, I will say, if you can't do the in-person Animal Reiki, we have another Animal Reiki classes in October, so you can take those online with us. It's not the only one in the year, but we know people are really excited about the in-person aspect of it. So want to make sure that we are keeping you informed around that. So we did have a few questions before we started the recording about the technical aspects of our monthly Q&As. They are once a month. As I was saying before to this live group, we do try to keep them on either the second or the third Wednesday of the month. They're always on Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. However, due to travel and teaching, sometimes those times or those dates have to adjust. So I do just want to show you where, and I'll explain this for those who are just listening, where you can find the calendar to find more dates of them. That is at reikilifestyle.com. And if you go to our classes tab and you go all the way down to our class calendar on that menu, you click on that. that has an embedded Google Calendar, and that's where you can find the dates for them. So next month in July is July 16th. And you can find all of our different things that we do there, our class calendars, things like that. So anyway, again, that's on the classes tab. If you go to class calendar, it's at the bottom of that tab. You can find our schedule there in more detail. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do now is we are going to bring us together as a circle with an invocation, whether you're here listening live or you are listening later. This just helps bring in the energy. If you're driving, just a heads up to make sure you can either listen to it later or just really know that the energy can wash over you deeply. So make sure you are being very aware of that. And if you need to pause it or fast forward or something like that, know that that is a very appropriate response and you can always come back to this. Danny, did I see you unmute? Go ahead.
Nope, keep going.
Oh, okay. All right. So for those of you that are here live, you can go ahead and turn off your videos if you would like. The invocation isn't going to be super, super long, but I know we might like to be comfortable and close our eyes and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to take a moment. I need to take a drink of water and clear my throat. So go ahead and close your eyes and take some deep breaths. And just allow yourself to come into presence and be in connection with that breath, like the waves on the ocean, the breath rolling in and rolling out, and the pause in between. The breath, the connection to life, connection to all things here on this planet, also to the solar system and the galaxies, the universe, the cycle of life, the cycle of all that is. And as you bring yourself into presence, just allow this moment to be for you. Whether you're listening right here at work or at home on a walk or in the busy parts of your day, wherever you are, however you are, just allow the energy of Reiki to wash over you and to be here now. Continuing to let your awareness come home to your body, to this moment, to the space within you where Reiki already lives. And as the Reiki activates within you, as you notice it, just allow your breath to be easy and natural. Not something to get right, but something to come back to. And we begin by calling in the light of Reiki as you activate it within you and all around you, where you say yes to receiving it. It flows now, surrounding you, filling the space around you, moving through you, through all of us who are listening together. And even though we are in different places and different times, Reiki connects us in a field of light and awareness. This is the place where we meet, in the heart of Reiki. We invite in the energy of divine love, divine mind, divine spirit, mind, body, spirit. As you activate any symbols that you might be attuned to within your hand, to invite in the light of the divine down through the top of your head and through each of your chakras, flowing through your hands into your body, temple of your great beaming light. And it flows all the way down through the bottoms of your feet and into the earth. And the places that are ready to release, the places that and the things that you are ready to let go of and release. Flow into the light of Reiki. They're to be listened to and heard and healed. And the places that are ready to release into the earth, they flow down and out the bottoms of your feet and into the earth. So you begin to feel more centered and stable and grounded, connected into this embodiment. Connected into your body, into the earth. For your body is made of the earth, it's made of the stars. And the light of the divine earth, our mother, the earth, her infinite wisdom, flows up through the bottoms of your feet and through each of the chakras, filling your body with the colors, the light of creation, that stardust that vibrates within you, matching the frequencies and the resonance, the heart of the earth. And those places where you've made space fills back up. The light of Reiki, the light of divine, the light of the earth. And it flows up through the top of your head and up into the divine, the heavens, the light of consciousness, where it's all the same, there is no separation. And it's all right here, right now within you. We invite peace, compassion, and clarity. And we welcome the wisdom of the earth and the rhythms of nature. And we welcome that light of the heavens and the stillness of the center within. Connect into that stillness, to the groundedness, that space in between the in breath and the out breath. The quiet, the peace. Anjin. And we give gratitude and we receive gratitude to Reiki for being here, for guiding the words that are spoken and received, for supporting this space as one of real connection and exploration and presence. And we call in the enlightened ones as they stand in a circle around you. And they shine their light onto you. And the pure, unconditional love that they are here with us and for us. Those that are known and unknown to us. The enlightened ones of your heart. We say thank you to the teachers of Reiki, to those ancestors that have come before us, that have brought these ways down to us, and those that will come after us, those students, those descendants. We're so very grateful for all that it took for these ways to be here now. And we are the ancestors of the descendants. As we say thank you to the healing that they are doing and sending it back to us, to the earth. And we invite our higher selves to be present, and we thank the earth for holding us as we sit in this shared space. And you are a part of this moment, this circle. Whether you're listening in silence or multitasking, whether you've been practicing Reiki for years or just beginning to explore, this moment is for you. You belong here and you are welcome here. And if you'd like, you can take another deep breath and place your hands on your heart or anywhere you feel called. As you feel your light, you feel the steadiness in your own inner truth. as we are here together receiving insight and support and curiosity and inspiration. So we allow this place to be where you return to your own inner knowing, your own voice, the peace that lives underneath all things. So you say thank you to you for how you walk in the world. So we all are walking towards more compassion and peace within ourselves, within our own lives, within the world. So we are here as a community for the betterment of humanity living on the earth. So we take a moment now and send Reiki to the World Peace Grids. Today is the World Peace Grid meditation. So we send Reiki to the intention that the people of Earth work together to create peace on Earth. And we give thanks for the gift of Reiki. We give thanks for each other. We give thanks for this time. Thank you. And so it is. So when you're ready, you can come fully back into the room or the space that you're in or into your body. Gently open your eyes. Thank you. And so it is. Okay, thank you, everybody. Normally, we give it a little bit of time, and if you're listening, you're welcome to just be where you're at and allow yourself to come back as you prefer. But because we're in a recording and the live group here will come um, back relatively quick. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started with some questions. All right. Danny, I see you unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say in our lineup, we have Nancy who is asking, during a distance Reiki session, is it okay to play soft music in the background during a phone session?
Okay, well, so I have a couple of ways to answer this question. So when we're talking about distance Reiki, there's a couple of different ways that we might practice distance Reiki. The first way is a a distance Reiki session where we are just sending like at a certain time, and we might talk before or after, and the actual session is where there's not that communication. So let's say I have a session with Danny. I know that she has intentions. So I'm sending Reiki to that, but I'm going to schedule a time. So 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, I'm going to go ahead and start sending Reiki. And then we might communicate in some way afterwards with, anything that happened during the session for either of us. So that's one way to do distance Reiki. Another common way to do distance Reiki is by being on the phone, or I know for me, I like to be on Zoom with a person. Um, Danny, do you want to go ahead and give your perspective on this while I'm doing that? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what Robin's going to say, but for me, when I'm doing a one-on-one session, I do go on Zoom and I do ask that the client uses their own music so it sounds good to them. Um, because like she was saying, like if I play my own music, it might be too loud. It might not even be the music they like. And so before I meet with them, in the reminder, I give them links and I say, here's some ideas. If you don't know any nice music, nice peaceful music, here's some links, and go ahead and download them or just have them ready to go when we do the session. And some people don't like music. Some people like it to be really silent. And so I kind of leave it up to the client. That's my 2 cents, Robin.
Thank you. So it really if I'm on a phone, if I'm on the phone, I would say that things that can happen on the phone with playing music in the background can be that it cuts out, the way that it comes through the speaker can be challenging, those kinds of things. Now, I'm actually the opposite to Danny. When I'm on Zoom, I like to share music. So I actually share music through the computer. I do not share it from my speaker to my microphone. That's when your music can have really tingy sound. That's when it can cut out, all of that kind of thing. And that for me would be really challenging. I'm pretty sensitive to noise in that kind of way. So I actually share my computer's music through it. So it is the same. Like we check music before I start my session. So in order to do that, you go to the share button on Zoom. And if you go to advanced sharing option, or no, I'm sorry, if you go to share, you click like the little green share square. And if you click on it, the advanced tab, it gives you the option to just share computer audio. When I'm in a one-on-one session, that's how I like to do it. I do check music, so I make sure the volume coming out the other end isn't competing with my voice because I channel through sessions. So there's that. So we do a whole sound check before. And for me, I feel that connection when I'm sharing the same song as somebody else. I would say Colleen does it the same as Danny, and she also only does her sessions audio only through Zoom. So they connect on the phone through Zoom. And to me, I feel like the music through that can get real dicey in the way that it comes through the speaker and how it can cut out. The way that I've done it, I don't usually my clients like that. Also, if they want to change, like they're like, oh, definitely had a few times where people don't like the music that I play. I play very even music. It doesn't have a lot of up and down because that can mess with the volume on their end as well. So, and it's really just kind of this background sound. Also, I've had a few clients that have told me, I don't really love that music, but I always have a few options. So then I would just play a different sound, a different style of music. So it really kind of just depends on your situation. Talk to your client, be in communication with your client, I would say is the biggest thing. If it's coming through the phone and it's challenging for them, that might be something where maybe in one ear you're using an AirPod or like an earbud to play your music if that's super helpful, because for me music really helps me to get into that music space or into that really deep space, and that can be true for other people. And as Danny said, she might just have a client play their own music. And I've done that before, but generally speaking, I like to have the same music that we're both listening to. But it is just that awareness around um, how it can sound, how it can be to the client during during sessions and in energy healing in general. We can all be so sensitive to sound with it. The other thing is that I check the sound for the client and then I will turn my sound up and down separately from their sound. So how that works is I have the speaker for me, I'm on a PC. For Macs, it's different. It's in the top bar. But I have the speaker in in my drop down, and I will play it differently than what my client is hearing. So I'll turn it down on my end, but they might be hearing it louder because again, I'm so sensitive to sound. So I might need it a little lower than what they need it, and vice versa. So the biggest thing is to be comfortable with the conversation, I would say, and how it needs to work for you as a practitioner, but also being making sure that your client is comfortable with how it all sounds and what the music is doing and the type of music, all of those different things. It's just one of those things that I think you get more comfortable with it the more times you have the conversation around the music, what's liked, what's not liked, the volume, all of those kinds of things. But yeah, definitely be conscious of how the music sounds through the phone, for sure. So I think Danny's perspective on that is also how Colleen does it. Okay, sound bowls with it. Okay, there's a couple of things in here. Okay. Sound bowls. Sound bowls are another thing that can be challenging through a distance aspect. So the um in person, that's a little bit different with a sound bowl. And there's definitely ways to be able to there's definitely ways for your sound bowl to come through better. So if you're on Zoom, like on a meeting like this, there's different ways that you can. Zoom has settings for musicians to be able to play music through Zoom. And there's settings for that in Zoom. So I would just Google that and how to do that because explain it here, it's not complicated. You just have to like turn off the original sound. But I would definitely Google how to do that. And I would bet there's even so yeah, so I would just Google how to do that. Lots of people do it successfully. And the sound comes through fine. Um, but also it can be challenging in the way Zoom does it unless you have your settings right, as well. And same with on the phone. And maybe again, also, you can definitely check the sorry. I've got a lot of kid actioning happening right now. This is just real life Reiki. Um, on the phone, you can check it before you go into the session so that you're not doing the sound when they are altered and very relaxed. So that is something else. Like if we're just talking here, me testing the sound is going to be different than where I was at 10 minutes ago with the meditation and where I'm in that space or coming out of that space. So that's another thing to just consider with the sound, with the music, all of that kind of thing. That you can test it before you go into the actual, okay, I'm going to do my session here with the distance session. So that's what I would recommend because it's a lot less jarring when I'm kind of in my uh when I'm in my like very relaxed and deep state. And then somebody else said in the chat of considering copyright issues when sharing music. That is true. If I'm in a private session with somebody, I don't really have to worry about the copyright in the same way as if I'm sharing it publicly. So anytime we share, like on YouTube, our music behind our meditations, we have permission with that, or we've bought it for commercial uses. And the copyright we have definitely used. We have definitely made sure that we have copyright free music when we're using it commercially. So that means publicly on YouTube, things like that. When you're in a private one-on-one session, the copyright rules are very different. That would be like if you're in person and you are having Alexa play something, or I was going to say a CD, but very few of us use those anymore. So, if you're playing like a sound music in a one-on-one session in person, the copyright is obviously very different than if you're playing it commercially behind your behind your YouTube videos or your social media or things like that. Because in those cases, if you're using it on social media, then you do have to think about copyright, and you can get like a copyright strike. You can get your video taken down or the music silenced in those cases. So just a heads up on that. So that's actually a really good thing to think about. However, if you're in a one-on-one session, like it's not being broadcast to the public. So that is a bit of a different situation. And then Natalie shared that I use a platform called Yogi Tunes, which allows you to share music, including on video. It's a monthly professional subscription. Perfect. Thank you for that suggestion. So it's Yogi Tunes is the name of that. So love it. Okay. So Danny, go ahead.
Okay, so we have quite a few questions here, and of course, you guys can go ahead and send me your questions live here. So I'm just going to read the ones who are emailed into Colleen. Um, how do I know if Reiki is working?
Great question. I love that. That is a common question that we get, especially when you are starting out with Reiki, because many of us feel the Reiki and we feel those sensations in our hands or otherwise. We might even get psychic impressions, but not everybody does. And so that is where this question comes from usually the most is that, well, I don't really feel that much. I don't have psychic impressions that come through, and I don't get the tingling or the hot or the cold in my hands, things like that. So what's interesting about this is that we have people that have been even Reiki master teachers for years, and they don't necessarily have those sensations or those psychic impressions in their hands with Reiki. And what they always say is that they can tell it's working by the results. We also have people that volunteer in medical settings, and having psychic impressions come through in those settings is inappropriate. Um, Not meaning that it's bad, it's that we wouldn't share any sort of psychic impressions. Some of us can't help it, so I don't mean it that way, but we wouldn't in certain settings, it's not, we stay within the scope of our practice. So if we're volunteering in a medical setting or things like that, it's definitely one of those things that we only stick to Reiki. We don't share psychic impressions that come through. And so we find that sometimes in those spaces, even if we do in other parts of our practice, because of the intention of really just allowing Reiki to come in and flow into this person, that we don't have those things that happen that we might normally have in other parts of our practice. Like I definitely have that for me. I can maybe feel that Reiki's flowing, but I kind of turn off that aspect of psychic impressions, channeling, those kinds of things in like a medical setting. And how I know that it's working again is the results. People become relaxed, they have a greater balance and comfort in their lives. They might even fall asleep. They might have things, aspects or shifts in their everyday life that happens because Reiki is not dependent. It's one of the greatest things about it that Reiki is not dependent on our experience as practitioners, because Reiki works regardless of our experience as a practitioner. So, what we can do as practitioners in that is just try not to evaluate our own experience around it, and really just look at the results that you have as a practitioner. So if you have somebody on the table, you're moving through the hand positions, you're not feeling anything, but they fall asleep, most of the time, if they're just laying there with their eyes closed in front of you and there's not Reiki happening, they're going to have all sorts of mind chatter, like wondering things that are going on. And they're going into a deep, relaxed state. They're falling asleep. That is definitely Reiki working. They might feel even just that stress reduction aspect. Some of them might even like have experiences of colors or things that happen for them within their kind of psychic impressions or feelings in their body. So maybe they have like a physical sensation in their abdomen or something like that. Those are also the ways that Reiki, that Reiki is doing the work. So Danny, I saw you unmute. Did you have other aspects?
Yeah, and Kathy was just saying, how do you get feedback back from your client?
Well, there's the physical aspects of that, right? So if they fall asleep, very obvious ones, but otherwise just ask them. So I usually have, especially in the in-person sessions, but distance mostly too. Some people just like to be in their own space after a session where they take time for themselves. They, you know, get off Zoom and journal and they thank me for the session. But generally speaking, we have a little bit of a dialogue after the session and you can say, did let me see how do I word that normally? You can say, how are you doing? Are there any questions about anything that came up during the session? And usually they're going to share about anything that came up for themselves or ask a question. Sometimes they might say, no, I don't have any questions, but I sure felt relaxed during that time frame. And so that's another way that that they're going to share their feedback during the session or from a session after the session. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Danny. Sometimes questions come up a day or more later. That's true. And I do always say to my clients, feel comfortable asking questions later. Sometimes it's not right away that you have questions. Things need to process, things need to integrate. Sometimes things need to move through their bodies, releasings that can happen. Lots of water can help that process. And so there are a lot of things that can happen in the after time frame of a session. And so I always leave space for client sharing experiences afterwards, um, or asking questions about afterwards. Go ahead, Danny.
I'm just on to the next question if you
Oh,
are.
let's go ahead and give it a second. Also, the Sarah said in the chat, listen for tummy rumbling. Yes, very common as well. So there's that. I agree, Sarah. That's super common. Also, twitching. I have twitches, especially when people work on my feet. That's another reaction that people can have that's very common. Also, to know that not everybody has the most pleasant experiences. This is another part of this question that comes up very often, especially if you are new to Reiki or energy healing in general, because it's not exclusive to Reiki. Sometimes when people have a Reiki session or a healing, it can happen in the Reiki session or it can happen after, to me is a bit more common, where people might have a big emotional reaction where, we think of Reiki as just we move through every session, every Reiki experience, blissed out, stress reduction, relaxed. So I think it's an important topic to normalize and to talk about, and we talk about it often enough. Um, that sometimes it's kind of the opposite. Sometimes you can have really big emotional releases, even things like anger that can come up for people. And to know that when these things happen, that is a part of the releasing process. When those things that come up that are uncomfortable, what comes up with that is like, okay, these are the spaces that are ready to be let go of. I remember when the world peace upgrade came through, the Holy Fire World Peace upgrade came through. And you'd think like going through that full experience and attunement that it would just be okay, I'm blissed out or peaceful in that state of a bit of like that Anshin state, that state of peace. And actually, it was quite the opposite. And many people reported this during that time frame of what it did do is it brought up all the places that I wasn't feeling peaceful. Happened for Colleen. I don't know if it happened for you, Danny, but it was a pretty common report. And for me, it lasted for weeks. There was this place of like, okay, these are all the places that I don't feel peaceful. And there was a space of discomfort after that. There was a space of, I wouldn't say anger, but maybe irritation or frustration after those spaces came up for me to confront or sit with, maybe a better way to phrase that. They were coming up because like it's like, okay, these are the places that I need to release. And on the other side of that is a place of more peace. There's another, these are the spaces that are ready to let go to allow me to upgrade in my own frequency within. And Reiki is helping me do that. So those are the emotional responses that people can have from a session. Another place that can that there can be is physical responses. So a common one is a headache. People can have headaches throughout the night, even the next day. So that is just so you know, if there's a headache and you don't feel any physical sensations and you're wondering, well, this must have not worked. A headache is very, very common. It's the same thing. Your body is detoxing, it's releasing those places that need to be released to make space for the new, to make space for that more balanced part of ourselves, to make space for that wellness, that greater sense of wellness, to make space to be connecting into that higher um, space of ourselves, that higher version of ourselves. So that's a common one. Also, like digestive issues can be common. All of those kinds of things can be common that day, even a couple days after. They do go away. So just so you know, um, and also I will explain to my client at that time frame, well, this is a somewhat normal reaction. It's not every time, it's not for every person. It's not going to be every time that person has a session, that's going to be their reaction, or their response to Reiki. And it can still happen to me, to me, to other people. It can still happen even many years down the road. I think what does happen is that you just get more comfortable with that response. So that is like now when I know that happens, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm uncomfortable, or oh gosh, I have a headache, things like that. Something's happening underneath that is important for me to be letting go. Whether I know consciously what that is or I don't, that's okay. Again, I don't have a huge attachment to that any longer. Um, and so I just know that it will pass. And this is just making space for a new version of me. And now it's almost, there's like gratitude in that, because healing can be a little uncomfortable. We have to let go sometimes of big stuff to make space for a new version of ourselves. So just an awareness that that's also a sign that Reiki is doing the work, that Reiki is doing it. So another kind of unexpected place that we can have, as I said earlier, it's not about our own experience, it's about the results. And that is a result too. So just kind of on the different perspective, different side of things with it. So, Danny, I know there were more questions, but I have a couple of them. I see some in the chat, and then I had one that I want to answer. Um, so, um, the question, unless you have something to add to what I was just saying.
I was just going to say, as a Reiki practitioner, also, you can get sensations. I remember even before I worked with Colleen, I was a student of hers, and I used to volunteer in Portland at the hospital, the cancer clinic. And I remember calling her and saying, I have the worst headache and sore throat and coughing. And I mean, I just had all these things going on. And she's like, well, you're taking it all on. You're absorbing all that. And it's not about you. She said in a very nice way. And Reiki is doing the work. And so as a practitioner as well, we can also have feelings. And so it's when we start getting a headache or our throat, getting croaky and stuff, it's like a reminder to like remove ourselves from that, let Reiki do its thing, and just kind of clear away that, because we're just a conduit, we're not taking it on. So just wanted a reminder of that.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Observe, don't absorb. Yeah. Which can be hard for us empaths. And many of us are called to Reiki because we're empaths, but that's a part of putting up those energetic boundaries. Reiki energy, making that field of light, bringing in our guides if we work with them. Also, Kenyoku, clearing, things like that. Kenyoku is one of the Japanese Reiki techniques. That's the dry bathing where we're, going across our bodies and our arms, and that's letting go of things as well, which I do after every session as well. Also, the power symbols, a really good clearing symbol, and bringing, filling back up after the clearing too. So, okay. So the next question is about cord cutting. So that's a big topic that we hear about in energy healing. What is it and how Reiki does that work? So cord cutting is a very big subject, just as an FYI. And you can read a lot about cord cutting, and a lot of different techniques in the ways to cord cut. So, first of all, to talk about what cords are. Cords, and you'll hear us use that term, cords and connectors is a term that we use often enough. There's a lot of different kinds of cords. They can be big, they can be small. Cords essentially are, if you think about it, they're pretty like the way that they sound is basically what they are. So, like a cord from me to Danny, for example. So it's attached to me and it's attached to Danny, would be an example of a cord. How cords happen, generally speaking, they are considered unhealthy. That what that is doing is that is kind of disturbing our own sovereignty, because what happens for me then affects Danny and vice versa. They are a type of, they're psychic. I'm trying to think of the words and they're not coming to me. So I'll go ahead and move on from that thought with them. Essentially, the cords can happen from unhealthy relationships. They can happen from experiences. So we can have experiences that we can have a cord attached to that experience. They can be attached to locations, seeing that as well, where a cord can be attached to a location. Maybe something happened there, maybe not. There can be a cord and connector to like a spirit attachment as well. That is something that can happen. I've seen that. Where they can be attached into past lives and ancestral healing, or ancestral lines as well. Like you can have a cord attached to an ancestor, or into a past life, or there can be a cord attached in that past life to somebody else, and that cord needs to be released as well. You see this a lot in relationships, cords and connectors within relationships. Now, even in good relationships, we have the right to be sovereign in our own body. And sometimes those cords and connectors can create an unhealthy dynamic within our relationships, even in positive and good relationships. So there is that. But then if we're talking about really unhealthy relationships or even like a breakup, things like that, those spaces can have cords and connectors. And so what is affecting me is affecting the other person. And sometimes those cords can even be kind of draining our own life force, or can cause a level of psychic attack, can cause, and even on a minimal scale of that, like sometimes we're talking about the major psychic attack, sometimes we're talking about, even if it's on purpose or not, like it doesn't, it's not always on purpose. um or it can be just even minor things. So there's a variety of ways and reasons that cords and connectors can happen. How cords and connectors, like how I picture them, is I picture them as like an actual connector. To me, they almost look like an umbilical cord type idea. Um, but that's going to be different for every person. That's just how I think of them, and how in my sessions and things like that, how they look. But that's, again, that's just individual. So that is what a cord is. And as I said, we do have all rights to be sovereign in our own body. Even in healthy relationships, they can cause somewhat unhealthy dynamics. So, like if I were to find a cord between Colleen and myself, we have a very good relationship. We're business partners. We're mother-daughter. And we have a great relationship. But if we were to have a cord between the two of us, we would probably release the cord. Yeah, Sarah put in the chat codependency. That's another place where we can have cords and aspects within our relationships with them. So that's kind of the 101 about cords. Now, how to release cords is another part of this question. So how to release cords? There are a lot of different ways to release cords. In shamanic healing, there's a lot of different ways to release cords. Um, and one of the common ways to release cords is by cord cutting. And cord cutting can look a lot of different ways. A common way can be with a crystal. So, and you might have, like different preferences on what your crystal looks like. A common one is a double terminated, or just maybe even a singly terminated crystal, which has the points at the end. But a double terminated crystal is a very common way to do cord cutting. And essentially, you are using the crystal to cut the cord. And oh, if you're just listening, what I did is I swiped with my crystal, like pretty, like hard. You're like cutting the cord. I think of it as like a sawing of the cord, or like even with scissors or something like that. To me, that is how cord cutting works, in that style of cord cutting. Sometimes it's with their hands. So they might cord cut in with their hands, like straight across where the cord goes, and they're releasing the cords from back before the origin of the cord, whether that was an event, whether that was a relationship, whether that was in a past life, whether that's to a spirit attachment, all of those kinds of things. You are cutting that cord before the origin of that, of whatever you're cutting. So one of the things that's really interesting is that as we have been doing this work within Reiki journey techniques, within the spirit reveal technique developed by us, within Reiki energy, showing us how it does this work, is that Reiki energy does cord healing. And that is it's a similar thing. It's just another technique on how to do that. And it is a bit of a different style. It has a bit of a different energetic frequency, in how it does this cord cutting. And with that, what is happening, whether it's through Reiki energy, whether it's through spirit guides, that's one thing I didn't mention before, and other techniques spirit guides might be doing the cord cutting. But through Reiki energy, the frequencies of the cord releasing is mm, maybe not the frequencies, the style is slightly different. And so, what you're doing is you're asking Reiki energy to come through. And even if you're working with a spirit guide through Reiki energy or a Reiki guide, you're asking that enlightened energy to come in and release the cord, heal the cord rather than cut the cord. And so it's doing the same thing where it is going in to before the origination of the cord, and it's releasing it from all time and space, backward, forward, and within. And it's sending it into the light of Reiki to where it is to be healed. And how that looks to me, it is actually like the cord is being dissolved rather than cut. And the energetic response to it, from my own experience, is very different. There are, even still, knowing both techniques, 99% of the time, I am doing a cord healing, a cord releasing version of this technique rather than a cord cutting. It's gentler. The cord cutting can be a lot for the person receiving it, as well as the other person that the cord is connecting to. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute. Because that, if you can even think about the ways that, if you visualize the two ways that these techniques are being done, cutting is just a bit more of a, I don't want to use the word harsh because I don't mean it to sound hierarchical. Both are very good techniques. Both have a lot of success within them. One is more stark, one is more abrupt when we are talking about, those might be better words, when we're talking about cord cutting. Where with Reiki energy coming in and gently dissolving or removing that cord, releasing that cord into the light, it is a gentler style, which with Reiki, we have found in a lot of these techniques that just doing it through Reiki energy does have a bit of a gentler style to it. It's powerful. It's equally as powerful. It's just a little gentler. So that's how we do our cord healing now, is it's a healing rather than a cutting. Again, sometimes that cutting is appropriate or still is used, but it is very rare that I do it in that style. And you do see the same results where that cord is lifted from the person into the light of Reiki, and you see the same results where it's detached from both people within it. So with that, if you just intend that Reiki comes in and releases those cords, Reiki does the work. And that is the great thing about Reiki energy, is that it knows how to do the work, and we can have that intention that we want to release those cords, and Reiki will come in and do that. Cords can be attached in a variety of places. You may not know where they are. Sometimes they can be like a really big cord. Sometimes they can be a lot of little cords. I see them in the abdomen quite frequently, like the solar plexus area. Solar plexus chakra area is a common place. Sometimes in the sacral chakra, if it's like a romantic relationship, that's another common place that they're attached. But they can be attached to a variety of things, and or to a variety of places. And somebody put in the chat, can be really helpful in unrelenting grief. Very much so. That's a really good point, because that was something else that I wanted to bring up with it. Is that if you find yourself in a place that you're like, I don't know why I can't get over this. Like, I feel ready to get over it. Everything is, like, intellectually in my mind, I feel like I am over this, and yet I'm still just stuck. That would be a symptom of where you can, where a cord might be keeping that energetic, that spiritual aspect of you connected, and why you can't necessarily get over it or why you feel stuck with moving on from it. So that would be a symptom of where you would look for a cord. And then again, I just use Reiki energy, and Colleen just uses Reiki energy, and Danny just uses Reiki energy. And it's very, very effective. And while there still can be really big emotional responses to that, it's definitely gentler than the cord cutting technique. So it's also, though, just preference. So however you feel called to do these techniques, that's up to you, but it is just preference. One of the other things that I want to say with this is that sometimes you can when a cord is released, you can find that to a person, you can find that person all of a sudden reaching out. So heads up with that. They feel it too. When they feel that cord being released, they feel it too. Sometimes it just means that they move on fully as well. But other times, because they might feel that, they might not know what it is, they might reach out because they may not know why. They're not going to know why. And it's not to say that it is doing that within their own energetic bodies, like you're doing it from your own energetic body or your client's energetic body, but they still feel that detachment from the person. So I just want to give you a heads up with that. Also, around the unrelenting grief, you can remove cords, release cords from people who have passed. And that can be super helpful as well. When you may not feel like you can move on, even though you feel like you want to move on. So just as another place where you might have that as well. So, another question in the chat, if I have a cord, is it better for me to release or have someone else using Reiki? Or if you want to do cord cutting, that's totally fine too. It really is. Both are very effective. Both are great. It's just really up to you and how you want to do the work and how you want to receive the work. As a receiver, me also 99% of the time I'm going to want to do the cord healing technique as opposed to the cord cutting technique. But I'm also really sensitive, so some people might prefer the other. Um, it really depends. I feel like we can have both on whether we do it ourselves or have, Reiki to come in. Sometimes we just need that outside resource. Sometimes we need that third party that can see it clearer than we can see it for ourselves. That's true with so many different things with Reiki, where self Reiki can be so subtle. Reiki session from somebody else can be really powerful. And so it really is dependent on the situation. But I also have really effectively removed or released cords by myself, or that's just what the Reiki showing me it's doing. And I'm in a Reiki journey or something like that, like the cord and connector can come in or shows up and I can release it myself. But if it's something to do with, like, let's say somebody who's passed or a relationship has ended, all manner of relationships, or there's an unhealthy dynamic within a relationship, like we were talking about a trauma bond or codependency or something like that. A lot of times it can be easier to have somebody else do that work for us because they can just see it a little bit clearer than we can see it for ourselves. But there's not really a right or a wrong around that. It's just what is kind of showing up for you in that moment. All right, Danny, anything to add to that? No? Okay. There's a couple more questions in the chat that I wanted to go ahead and answer. So Min, in my shamanic Reiki studies, I read about Ushai, which means fifth element, that spirit that permeates all the elements, infusing us and everything around us is the fifth element. And I am wondering if this is also what Colleen has been saying. She's been hearing from the descendants that energy is the fifth element. So, first of all, to clarify what she's saying here, is that Colleen talks about the energy or electromagnetic fields as the fifth element, that the descendants came in in 2020, I think it was, when we were working with moving or going online with Reiki, as an example, because Colleen and myself were pretty instrumental in that as well with William Rand when he, r- received the guidance from Reiki energy that it could be taught online. And so one of the things that Colleen was really shown in that time frame is that it's really important for us to be working within the electromagnetic fields also, which you can call them electromagnetic fields, you could call it energy. It's all kind of, different versions of the same the same thing, just as, earth has a lot of different aspects to it. Water has a lot of different aspects to it. And so uh that was really shown, and that the descendants, and it's hard for me to fully talk about this from her perspective, obviously, but just to give a little bit of context and a little bit of background to this question. And the descendants, when she was working with somebody and they went to travel back to the ancestors to ask, how do we move through this? The ancestors said, go talk to the descendants. And so what the descendants showed them is that they really also need to embrace this, that technology is, where we are at today with everything, and to add these frequencies into these fields, into the electromagnetic fields, into this idea that energy is moving throughout the planet in so many different ways, whether that's us talking to each other through this type of energy, the electromagnetic fields of power, of, satellites bouncing from my house up to the satellite to your house, or phone, or, earbuds, even AirPods talking to your phone. We have all of this, and those electromagnetic fields are being used for a variety of things, and how important it is for us to be anchoring in these ways also, these ways of love and compassion and healing and Reiki energy and community, this global community that we are able to have with each other, Reiki being able to be spread throughout the world, um, with each other, and how important that is around all of it. And so that is what we have been really working with since that, and since then. Um, Also that balance of earth, the balance of the elements, the balance of the electromagnetic fields, which she called a fifth element. And to your question, Min, yeah, it's not different. It's not new. There's 5 elements in ancient Chinese medicine. There's 5 elements in, um, as you were saying here in your shamanic, Reiki studies, which is energy. It's the unseen element, although air is very much unseen in most contexts. Some contexts, it's able to be seen. And so I don't know enough about this, these terms. I don't know enough about the 5 elements in Eastern philosophies to, I know it's like ether heavens, and in some of it, just because the ether is one that my acupuncturist always has to work on with me, which is really ironic. Um, and it's a reason that I have to really work on staying grounded, is because I'm in the ethers a lot. And so being in that embodiment and being in that grounded state is really important to me. It's how am able, supposed to balance the two. But again, I don't know quite enough about it to use all the terms and say all of that, but I would agree with you that it would be uh, the fifth element, that there is this energetic aspect. We're all energetic beings. We all have a Schumann resonance. We are able to entrain to each other's Schumann resonance. The earth has a Schumann resonance. We have, I don't know if that's different than a biofield. To me, they're kind of the same thing. And we respond to each other's Schumann resonances. We respond to the Earth's Schumann resonances and changes in those and frequencies in those. And so we are energy and we're energetic beings. And I don't see how that would be different than just every other element as well. And yeah, so I would akin them to each other. It's just I don't have enough knowledge about each one to be able to speak. And if there were somebody that was very educated in those ways, they might have a different opinion, and I leave space for that. I leave room for that, of course, because I don't want to speak to other traditions that I am not trained in, that I don't have the low level of knowledge in with it. So definitely honoring that and leaving space for that. But that in my own personal experience of being in the five elements within like Chinese medicine, um, that I would liken them to each other. But also I want to definitely leave space for traditions that might feel differently or have a different perspective of it. Okay, then there's one more question in here that I think is a good question. Sorry. Okay, here it is. Is there a difference in the quality of experience in healing for clients between in-person versus online treatment? So some people prefer in person and other people prefer online treatments, and some people might have a mixture of both. So you will hear mixed things on this. Again, another place I leave space for everybody's viewpoints on this. In our own experience, we only take distance clients now at this point, Colleen and myself. Danny, I think you do a few in person, right? But it's pretty limited on who.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in Eugene, Oregon. So
Yeah. Well, also it's just a matter of logistics, right? Having a space and things like that.
yeah,
Yeah. So she takes distance clients as well. But her in-person clients it has to be selective because of, just the practical things around it. Um, but some people are going to have the opposite, like they only take in person and they're selective about their distance clients, and how that looks for their practice. The effectiveness we've seen both be extremely effective. Like I said, I mean, I think actually the majority of my clients right now, maybe save one, are on the East Coast. So I have a lot of East Coast clients and I have very effective sessions with them. You can get really relaxed, fall asleep. In my own experience, I have distance sessions with Colleen. Sometimes it's hard for me to get there and she lives 20 minutes from me. So now for those of you that are in the distance Reiki share, I did just tear partially tear, is a small tear, but my meniscus on my knee. I do feel a difference in the distance Reiki when I'm asking for group Reiki on my knee. It's on my right knee, by the way, if anybody wants to send Reiki to my right knee. And we know that knees especially is one of the places that we have good research around is knee replacement surgery and the effectiveness of Reiki in accelerating healing for it. So there's that. But also I was telling Colleen, like, please work on my knee at a distance because I can't get there every day. But also I want to have an in-person session or a couple in-person sessions with your hands on my knee, as well. So in the in-person session, can there be a slightly different experience? Yeah, you have touch, right? You have, or a light touch or hovering. So we know that there is a benefit in just touch therapy without Reiki. And when in those studies, actually, that I was just speaking of, they have three groups. They have somebody who is not receiving Reiki at all, like nothing. We have a group that is, and these are, the two control groups. We have a group that is receiving touch therapy, but no Reiki. They call it sham Reiki. And then we have a group that is receiving touch Reiki. Or again, the light hovering. I'm just going to include that. So you can just include that when I say that. And you did see a benefit within the group that had just the sham Reiki. So just touch therapy, but no actual Reiki. They weren't even attuned to Reiki because as Reiki practitioners, sometimes if the Reiki is going to come through and just do what it wants. So they weren't attuned to Reiki. It was just a touch therapy. And you did see an improvement in that. You saw more of an improvement in the group that was providing Reiki also. So you saw an improvement in both, but we know that touch therapy has benefits all on its own. So I do think that when it comes to the physical feeling of a Reiki session, yes, there is an experience to an in-person Reiki session. And sometimes that is why people prefer that, or people just prefer that in-person experience. However, I can tell you from my own personal experience and as a practitioner, the level of benefit that people get from a distance session is also extraordinary. And it's like, we just put on social like why it works, how it works. We can explain it through quantum physics. We can with non-locality, which won the Nobel Prize. I think it's like 3 or 4 years ago now. We also can explain it like a radio tower sending out radio waves. Like, yes, we can measure those, but we can't physically see them with our eyes unless we have special instruments and the antenna picks it up. So going back to even our last conversation about energy, ancient traditions have known about energy and that it is one of the elements and that it exists, whether or not that we can see it without special instruments. And radio waves are a perfect way to explain that. Um, and that's how we kind of think about distance Reiki. Um, Also with it, people fall asleep, people have physical sensations, people become incredibly relaxed. So you have that, just as I was saying about even if you don't feel anything as a practitioner, how do you know that it worked? Well, the results, those are results. Also, those uncomfortable experiences that I was talking about also happen with distance Reiki or like the foot jerking or things like that. That all can happen with distance Reiki as well, and extraordinary insights. There's benefit to distance Reiki. One of them is not having to drive. So, if you are going somewhere for an in person Reiki session, you can get pretty altered. And it's really nice to not have to fight with traffic or things like that after your in person Reiki session. Um, and so with that, like people can be in their own spaces. They can be comfortable in their bed. It's where a lot of people choose to do their Reiki sessions or lie down on a couch or something like that. And so there's a lot of benefit. Then they can be in their own space afterwards, and they don't have to worry about the stress of getting there or the stress um, of getting back to their own space. So that's a benefit of it also. Um, the other benefit of it, especially if you have this style of Reiki session where people go on mute during the actual, Reiki hand positions part of the session, is that they can have their own experience without worrying about somebody else observing that experience. So sometimes people don't feel comfortable crying in front of others or have a hard time crying in front of others or any other kind of emotional release. They can be, and so they may even hold themselves back a little bit from that experience. Where with being at home in their own space, they can have any style of experience that they want and not have to worry about that, allow that release to happen. And that can, be very beneficial for people. So they're just different. I wouldn't say that there's not a better or a worse around it. It's preference with it. It is style of who you want to be as a practitioner with it, because you have your own preferences, that's okay. There can be logistics. Maybe you're just starting out and it's hard to find a space. Maybe you can't have people in your own space. Like for me, it would be hard to have people in my house during the summer because, I had knocking at my door. I've got the kitchen above me. There's walking. Like that's not very relaxing for people, So, and is there a space around me that I can rent out to do that? Well, in my location, yes, because I live outside of Portland, Oregon. So that part's easy, but not everybody has that option or opportunity or even a community that feels safe to be able to have in-person sessions in. Or if you do live in a rural community where it's hard to have it be accepted at first, having an online community and an online distance Reiki can be a part of how your business actually gets off the ground and thrives and gets going, because it's a lot harder in your in-person place that you might live. So we see that as well. So there's those practicalities of it as well. Maybe financially, you're not able to rent a space out. Again, you can, with social media and the acceptance of online Reiki and communities that we are building through it, we are finding that more and more available to people, and it can help our practice grow maybe even a little faster depending on your situation by being able to have an online space, an online session for people. So, Danny, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that.
No, I agree with it. I really enjoy like you were saying, logistics of being able to have a session with someone in a different time zone. Um, so it's way easy, like in a different country, or like you were saying, like East Coast or something. So just kind of makes it easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And all over the world.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
And classes too, actually.
Yeah, classes too. Yeah, for sure. All right. I think that we got all the questions that I know, like, and I wanted to answer that cord cutting question as well. So I think we got most of those, or all of those. So Danny, is there any other questions that
I do. I have a good one. So about permission. So this person is asking if they see a person or an animal from their car and they want to give Reiki, is that okay?
Yeah, that is a good question. And another common one that we have when we're just starting out. So the first thing to know about that is that Reiki never does harm. So even if you send it and the person doesn't want to receive it, they won't. That's the good thing about it, because I'll leave like Reiki trails or do Reiki in a grocery store. And I know that the people that want to receive it or would say yes to receive it, if they walk through like a little Reiki field or zone, Reiki zone in the store, that they will receive it. And those that don't won't. So that's one of the best things about Reiki, is that it doesn't ever like violate free will or personal sovereignty or anything like that. Um, it it just allows for that person's permission, even higher self, things like that, that they won't receive it if they don't want to. Sometimes their higher self wants to and they don't necessarily know that. And then other times it doesn't. And I've definitely had situations where I might even send to a person or a situation and I get that no, and that's okay. I don't have attachment to that. Also, if you're driving by a situation and an animal, yeah, I think this is one of those questions that, because we teach an animal Reiki, that you have to have permission from the caregiver to send to an animal. If I see an animal in a pasture, or there's a struggle, or even an animal that's passed on the side of the road, things like that, I am probably going to send Reiki to the situation. And so I know in that case that I'm not maybe sending it directly to the person, or if there's an accident or something like that on on the road, I'm going to send it to the situation, and that it goes to the persons and the people that want to receive it, need to receive it, and that it goes to the highest good of all. And, like, when I am sending to world events, that's another thing that I do. I also send it in the form of, if a person wants to receive it in the way of prayers, that Reiki is just translated into that for them. I see this a lot in my community board, um, where I live in somewhat, it's not super rural, I'm only 45 minutes to an hour outside of Portland, but I live in a small town and can be rather conservative out here as far as people's religions are concerned, and they wouldn't want to receive Reiki. I'm okay with that. I send Reiki or I send prayers to them. And that's how they want to receive that. And I'm okay with that. I'm still sending love and compassion. And I think of Reiki as source consciousness, God, pure love, all of those kinds of things. And so I'm just going to send it kind of in that way, in the way that they might want to receive, like, because to me, that's also prayer. It's compassion. I'm not really a prayer, but it's compassion. It's sending light. It's sending love. And I will even use the symbol of, the mental emotional symbols, SHK. It's a translator, and so I might use that to translate it into the prayers that they want to receive. So that's another way that you can do it. And so, yeah, you're not going to always have the opportunity to ask permission for every single situation, but Reiki will go to where it's needed. Reiki will go to how it's supposed to be received or wanted to be received. Sometimes it won't be received, and that's okay. That's what the person wants, and that's what the person needs in that moment. And so send it to the situation. And to me, that is, it's beneficial. You're sending love to that person. It's beneficial. Again, energy, and the energy of love to me is never a bad thing. The more of that that we can provide into the better.
And
Um,
so, oh,
oh,
did you see Jules? Jules said,
yes. Yeah,
yeah.
could you provide an example of a prayer before or and after a session? Yeah, so Jules, we have that invocation booklet on our website. It's at reikilifestyle.com. It's in the resources tab. Danny will put a link to the chat, but for those of you that are listening, it's in the resource tab and it's under free downloads. And in that, we actually have short prayers that you can, or short invocations that you can do before a session. So if you don't want to do a long one, you can do a short one, and those are provided in that booklet that you can use. You can also change them. They don't need to be exact. That's totally fine. You have our permission to change them. They are just for the benefit of the people, and for you as a practitioner and things like that. Um, I'm just going to look at it. Also has steps to how to write your own if you want to do your own. And so there's one in here that is very short. It's just like, close your eyes, take some deep breaths, and you can place your hands comfortably on your body. That's if they're attuned to Reiki. If it's for a session, they may not be. So you can leave that line out. There's a perfect example of how to adapt it. And then, we invite Reiki. If they're attuned, you can even say the names of the symbols, spiritual teachers and guides, the divine earth. So those are just, who we would invite in addition to the Reiki energy. You can also say your name, or the name of your client and their intentions within this. So we're here in this session today for Danny, and her intention is to let go of fear and bring in peace. So we can say their intentions into it. Reiki surrounds us, it fills the room. I'm also kind of reading what this one says. And um, that it's for the highest good of all, the best outcome for my client. Then at that point, how I was I always like to say too that as a practitioner, like I set my ego and personality aside and I ask that I'm just a conduit for the Reiki energy so that I'm out of the way and I'm just, giving Reiki and the psychic impressions that come through are from the Reiki energy and the divine and not from my own projections, stories, opinions, things like that. There's a lot of varieties, a lot of ways in how you can do an opening prayer. You could even shorten it from that if you want. You could just even be so just close your eyes, take some deep breaths, allow yourself to be here and present, and be here and for you. And we just surround you with Reiki energy, fill the room with Reiki energy. So it can be very short also. For the sealing of a session, the closing of a session, that is, I think we just talked about this in the distance Reiki share, not this week, but the last week when we did the how to do a session. And I think I said about how to seal a Reiki session. So if you want to also revisit that, I might have talked about the invocation. Sometimes when we're in those, it can be a little channeled, so I don't actually remember all of the details of exactly what I said, but it might be also more expanded than what I'm saying here. But in the sealing of a session, I usually say, I seal this session with love and light, and love and light. If I know that they're attuned to Reiki, at that point, I like to use the distance symbol, maybe in addition to another symbol I'm called to use, or maybe something we worked with during the session in a really, heavy way or a big, a focus of the session. So in that case, I might use the power symbol, or because I can say it, tree of life, tree of life, tree of life. And I ask that the power of the session carry forward, backward, above and below and within. And I like to use the distance symbol in that setting. Some people only use the power symbol to seal a session and they might draw it over their body. If I can't say it, like I know they're not attuned to Reiki and I can't say it, I'm just going to think it in my, or picture it in my mind's eye that it's going over their body and maybe draw it and maybe draw the distance symbol over their body or over my surrogate if I'm working at distance. I like to use the distance symbol because it moves through time and space. And so I like that the session is also going backward as well as forward. So when we seal a session, we are asking that the session continue, the power of the session continue, ask that no unwanted energy goes into our client. But I do like to use this. I also like the intention of that time frame, whether you use the distance symbol or not, because I know not everybody's attuned to the symbols. You can just do this through intention as well. I like to ask it to go back as well. And then the power of the session is healing along the timeline. Because a lot of times things that are being healed in the session is this life trauma, but it can also be from past lives and things like that. So can the power of the session carry forward to those past versions of ourselves? Or of our client, of course. So that is the reason that I have that intention. That's my example. There's a lot of ways to do that. There's not really a right or a wrong. So after the session is done, I'm sealing the session with love, with Reiki, with the distance symbol, and asking that it carry forward and no unwanted energy go into it. Then I am going to, say thank you, and so it is. That's generally my closing prayer isn't that long usually. My sealing of the session isn't that long usually. Usually it is about 5 or 6 lines. If I'm in a journey with somebody, and I'm saying this because I know you're in the Reiki journey classes, I usually will, come back over the bridge of light and bring back in this physical consciousness, like the first heaven, this physical realm. And rather than being in the enlightened realms, and then go through that same kind of sealing process. I also go into gratitude. So the same way that we thank you things in our invocations here in these circles, I do gratitude in the closing as well. But if that feels like a lot to remember, that's okay. You can just say thank you, and so it is, and know that that is going to encompass all of these things that um, you have gratitude for. So the Reiki energy, the enlightened ones, the ancestors and teachers, and also the descendants and whoever you want to have gratitude for. All right.
I think Joe has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, just a very quick question. We're talking about virtual Reiki versus in person. I find it fascinating you have that many clients away. That's great. The benefit, of course, of in person is the warmth from the hands, the glowing radiance that a person feels in their body during a Reiki session. In the virtual sessions that I've done, I had one woman who was holding a crystal, and the crystal itself got hot, but not her. Just wondering, Robin, in your experience, just briefly, I mean, do people still feel some kind of physical sensations too, as well as a session, or can cite any of them of what type they are?
Yeah. So absolutely they do. There can be that relaxed state. I think I said that in that when we were talking about that question, that relaxed state, falling asleep is really common, or going into that Reiki gap where you're just like you're in that deep state of, whether that's rest or whether that's sleep or whether it's kind of that in between state that we talk about, and many of us know about. That's a common place that people go. But yes, physical sensations can absolutely come up. I, realistically and transparently, yes, there is a level of physical sensations that you receive by being in person that not everybody receives being at distance. So like you said, that hot or sometimes cold, those kinds of sensations that can really be a part of in-person Reiki session because of that physical touch, that is a reality of the differences with it. I do also think that, like for me, I'm very open to the distance Reiki and so believe in it that I have very many physical sensations that I will also have when I am in person, whether I'm burning up through holy fire, or my hands as a practitioner are absolutely like nothing's actually happening, but they are burning up. Also they can get cold, and I know like Colleen can get really cold. Um, and so that can happen too. So it's not just heat, it can be cold. I can have that for sure. The one thing I will say that I don't have distance as versus in person is I don't usually have the muscle twitches that I can have in person, like on my feet. So in person, that's so common. And distance, I don't really have that happen too often for myself as a client, personally. But I have had people distance as a practitioner that have had those like really huge physical sensations, especially in their solar plexus. That seems to be a really big place. Their heart can be a really big place of those big physical releases at a distance. Absolutely still happen for me, as a practitioner, and the experience of the clients. We know that there is a slight benefit to touch, just as I was talking about through the studies, like the touch and the sham Reiki. I know you joined late, Joe, so I don't remember when and where you joined us in reference to that conversation. But uh, at the same time, there are benefits to distance Reiki because of, as I said before, being in your own space, but those physical reactions absolutely happen. And I don't think that it has to do necessarily with people's openness to Reiki. They happen for people that are even like, well, can I do a distance session? Is that like a thing? And they're going to just try it for the sake of trying it. And then they're blown away with it. And I'm just thinking of somebody that was a new client for me and came in, didn't really know anything about Reiki, was referred to me by a family friend. And, you know, I wouldn't say skeptical, but had never had the experience and really just wondering. And then the level of release that happened in their solar plexus was so significant. They're like, I was actually like a little bit frightened, was not the word that they used, but like it was rather uncomfortable, that releasing sensation, but also weird. Not it wasn't like a stomach ache. It was just, I think many of us know what that feeling is of that release that can happen. And that was the person's first time. They weren't sure about having a distance session. They weren't sure about, any of that kind of thing. And then it was a very, very significant release in the solar plexus chakra that happened for them. So anyway, so yes, it can happen for all sorts of different ways. Hot, cold, physical sensations. As somebody said, I think it was Sarah said, tummy rumbling, things like that that people can experience distance Reiki.
Yes, I find one of the characteristics in person, I find a lot of times that the little stomach gurgle
Yeah.
comes up when you start giving Reiki over the stomach. So you know something's going on.
Yes. And it's funny because it happens as a practitioner too. So, it's when your stomach starts grumbling as a practitioner, or if you're leading an invocation or meditation that happens as well, something's happening to you. You're in that releasing process as well, because you do receive as you give. It's very common for clients, but it also happens as a practitioner. So,
Yeah, I know when I enter into that transcendental state as I'm giving Reiki, then I know that, it's really kicked in and it's working.
yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I think we are at time. Is there anything real quick, Danny, that yeah.
That's good. I think we answered all of our questions.
Well, fantastic. Okay, well, thank you all so much, those that are here live or were here live, and those that are listening later. We sure appreciate our community. Thank you, Danny, for today and helping and your wisdom and knowledge as a experienced Reiki practitioner, teacher, and all of those kinds of things too. So lots of love to you all, and thank you. We'll see you next episode.